Dude, give me some narration.
Is that bright enough for you?
Finally, a light that matches my personality. I don't know how to do that.
Give me another speed loader there, suspect.
Have one?
God, this light rocks. Look at this thing.
Dude, it's crazy.
That's 125 yards there. This is the Olight SR91 Intimidator. This light for run and gun rocks. You have an intruder in the house, grab your handy pocket light. Hold on, let me set those plates for you.
Okay.
Let's do this proper if we're gonna do it.
Finally,
Get ready!
matching my character, ladies.
Nice. I have to hand that light off to somebody.
Yeah. Anyways, that's cool.
That's way cool. Honestly, I think some of the best flashlight testing I do here in the Nutnfancy project is tied to my gun testing. Perhaps in run and gun action out there in the desert, as you guys have seen for years now in TMP, I also test a lot of flashlights, some of my favorite designs. And I think it's a good test for lots of reasons. One, environmental. There's snow, there's blizzards, it gets very cold, sometimes below zero. Summertime it gets well above 100 degrees, there's dust, there's mud. We fall down, we bang the lights. I think it's as close as I can get here in TMP to real world testing. These are some of my favorite lights in this pouch. In fact, this is a storage pouch I take with me in a duffel that comes out with me to the desert when I'm testing guns. This is not made up, I just extracted it from a duffel. I'll show you what's inside. Again, some very proven lights. I'm going to ask you also, which one do you think is the most useful out there doing the gun testing? And let me say this, I want my light to work in those conditions. I don't want to have to fool around with it. I don't want it to be difficult for it to maintain its mode. All the things I talk about in my flashlight reviews play when I'm out there in the desert. I want it to be what I call gear transparent. In other words, I'm not thinking about it, it just works. In this case, it's enabling me to illuminate the target like this Quark AA Turbo. It's got a new name now. I'll just call it the AA Squared Turbo. And I use this one to illuminate a steel plate, so at 200, maybe even 300 yards, I can see that steel plate, engage it at night, and the weapon testing protocol continues on, even though it gets dark very early in the wintertime. So all these lights are very important. So we have that one. Oh, here we go, old school. L2D and OD. Still love this light. You guys might be surprised to know that I don't constantly upgrade my lights. If it works, it has adequate brightness levels for me, I keep it. And then we've got its successor, the Phoenix LD20 in there, kind of beat up because it's been stuck in the mud, illuminating the plates out there. Great light. And these again are not weapon lights, these are more EDC lights, but in the philosophy of use of illuminating those targets, they work very well. Here's a weapon light. Reference weapon light, 4.7's Maelstrom G5. And then I have the successor over here, not in the pouch because it hasn't gone out yet, the X7. Running the XML. Both great weapon lights, all arounders. Let's see if I have any more in there. This pouch fluctuates. I have different lights that go out there with me. So again, the question, which of these do you think is the most useful, the most awe-inspiring? How about none of them? Trick question, gotcha. It's this one right here, and I'm not making this up. The Olight SR91 Intimidator. It's a smaller version of the SR90, and I have ran both here in the Nutnfancy project for a long time. I kind of have a history with SR90, I'll tell you. And this, to answer the question, is the most impressive light, the most useful all-around light that I can take with me out there in the desert to help me with my running guns, to illuminate the target. Okay? I'm going to tell you why when we get to versatility, because you might be surprised. You're like, well, that thing's huge. It is huge. TP, say hello. Size and weight. 11.3 inches, 42 ounces. It's a big light. Where did that G5 go? just by way of comparison, it ain't no weapon light. There's no way you would strap this on your gun. If you are a fool. I'm not saying that, but it does have some very distinct and useful philosophies of use. Size and weight is substantial, so much so that they've included snap-on brass rings at the front and back end for the included shoulder strap, which, by the way, is a great way to carry this. There's the Olight shoulder strap. I did use it, and it works great, especially for heavy light. It's got to be heavy, though, because with current technology, things are always changing, they're always upgrading. You're going to need a good power source. Generally something rechargeable, generally something proprietary. Those are the lights that I see producing the maximum levels of brightness. We'll talk about the specifics here in just a bit. This runs 6 18650 batteries, and they call it a power cell. It had a name to it. I went on the Olight website, was checking out. If I remembered, I'll tell you. Basically 6,000 milliamps, 7.4 volts. I think that's what it's putting out. I could be wrong with that. If so, I'll annotate it. But those are the power cells that are going to really put the juice out. That's what current technology needs. Downside, it's going to be big, it's going to be heavy, and then we go to construction. Waterproofness. Well, it's high quality aluminum. On the SR91, this gets very interesting. Pay close attention. They say it's IPX8 waterproof. Okay, and as I've talked about in many of my other torch videos, that means under static water pressure conditions, it will be waterproof, as long as you don't sling it around and turn it into a dynamic condition, which can actually purge your seals. I find it very interesting. On the SR91, it's called IPX8 waterproof. But on the SR90, which is a bigger light, brighter, longer runtime, it is listed as mil-spec 810F, as in Foxtrot. Now, I haven't been paying attention to the Olight website, 47 site, which sells this light. I think it might have had something to do with my testing of the SR90. Yeah, took it into the water barrel and it completely failed. The SR90 I'm talking, in other words, the larger version of this. Basically the same exact construction. My mileage, and that's all it is that the light was not at all waterproof. Now, granted, I didn't do pure static water conditions. I take my lights under the water barrel, I'll swish them around a little bit, swishy, 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 and I'll leave them there for hours and see what happens. I didn't even think for a moment the SR90 would fail that test. Didn't even think about it. In fact, so confident was I in the waterproof O-rings, which are attached on the forward portion and on the aft portion of the SR90, not this light, the SR90, I didn't even check it. I went back like a couple days later and I was shocked to find out that I had water all inside the flashlight. See the pictures? Yeah, it was everywhere. I was like, oh my gosh, this is an expensive light. And I just ruined it. Remember how I've said in other flashlight tabletop reviews that not every light passes that test? Say hello to the Olight SR90. Now, is that an unreasonable test to conduct? I'm going to maintain that it is not. I'm not diving with a light. I'm basically replicating what would happen if you go boating and you dropped it over the side at the pier. And I'm really not going that deep. I'm only going 3 feet deep with it. So I really think the light should be able to withstand it. Okay, this one is rated IPX8. Same exact construction, so you figure that out. I called up 47s, talked to David Chow, passed it on. I think he passed it on to Olight. It's like, yeah, this not good. Let me tell you this too. This is an ingress point for water right here. This one little area, it's just a little snap cap where you recharge a battery. Was that completely seated? I really don't know the answer to that question. I tried to do it and I looked the light over before I took it into the water barrel. I want to be fair to the light though. I don't want you to think there's something substandard with the light. But at the same time, I got to warn you, as a user of the SR series, be careful if it goes underwater. You might just lose this very expensive light. So I will say the waterproofness is splash proof, not waterproof. There you go. Ergos. Well, I didn't really cover construction. I guess this is a good time to say it. You got crenellations, Is that a word? On the front and back ends of the SR91. You could smack someone upside the head. Heck, you wouldn't need to use that though. This thing's so big. It's like a baton, a defensive baton. I think it's 7,000. It's probably 6,000 series aluminum body. Look at the heat sink around the emitter head. They have some fancy term for it. I forget what it was. It pulls heat out of there, and you really need to do that because these high performance LEDs really crank it out. Speaking of which, that LED is the luminous SST-90. See it set in a highly polished aluminum reflector. And this reflector is all about throw. All about throw, and I think that's well done. Again, the O-ring's there, brass carry ring. Great gripping on there. I should say knurling on there. Block, knurling. And then back has crenellations. And then we have a battery indicator right here. We can push them. I'm about 50%. Each one of those lights, by the way, stands for something. I think one light means 20 to 40%. I just got this off the Olight website. 2 lights is 40 to 60%. 3 lights illuminated means you got 60 to 80%. And then if you have 4 or more lights, I guess there's only 4 there, 85% or better on the battery. Okay, there you go. Quick rundown on the construction. And the ergos I find for a big light with this type of throw and capability are excellent. On to brightness and throw. Well, the specs from Olight tell us that on high, 1500 lumens. Okay, I think I got it in low mode. Let me see. Press and hold. There we go. 1500 lumens, 90-minute burn time. Those are factory specs. And if we go to low mode, press and hold that switch, then it pops into low mode, 450 lumens, 10.5 hours. I jumped around on the internet and some very smart people at various places say you don't quite get that brightness level out of there. Expect something less in both of these modes. I will leave it up to you. If you're interested, you can go search out this information. They say, I'm talking Olight, that it has an 800 meter throw. I'm going to throw the BS flag on that. Dude, I don't even know if I can see anybody with my naked eye at 800 meters. And I have used this light extensively, also the SR90, its predecessor, before I ruined it in a water barrel test, out in the desert, which is very dark and very spooky, by the way. And I found that it throws outstandingly, but not to 800 meters, unless you're just saying that it just has usable illumination at that distance. I find that on high mode, you will have no problems illuminating a 100-yard target, something that I'm still waiting for this form factor to do. It hasn't done it. Not yet. Not with current technology. Stay tuned. Maybe it will change. Now, since this is oriented for throw at closer distances, I think I'm still in low mode here. No, here we go. You can see it maybe. It has kind of what I'll call a flora pattern, and that's basically reflections bouncing off the LED emitter chip set there in the reflector. So it's bouncing back and forth. Very efficient emitter head. This one's dirty because it's been carried in that bag too. Didn't even bother to clean off for the review. Don't worry about that. It's actually a very clean and concentric beam, and you won't even notice it. And once you get to distance, which again is this light's calling, you will really be loving it. Just has a great, I'm talking reflector on it. Let's see, it has kind of a clean white tint to it, which is my favorite. Not green, not yellowish like we've seen some other stuff. I think the throw, for what it is, with that power source, is outstanding. And I already talked about the burn times. User interface. Well, I don't know if I showed you because I was off camera when I did it. Here's your button. So I already talked about it. You just push it down and hold it down to get into high mode. Press it down again and it gets into low mode. If you want to do a haunted house in your garage, maybe a rave party at your frat. Just kidding. No college kid's going to be able to afford this light. Just double press that switch. That'll bring you to strobe mode with SR91. So pretty simple, really. You got 3 choices. Low, press and hold, high, double press, strobe. For me, that's enough for the SR91. I think some flashaholics would want more user definability, and I think that's a fair request given the price of the light. But for me, and the way I use the light, I really don't need it. I'm only bringing this light along, taking the weight, taking the size, when I need to throw a beam a long ways. And that takes us to versatility. Well, check the name. You guessed it, SR stands for Search and Rescue. That's a primary philosophy of use for this big old light, is to find stuff when it's dark and you need to really go a long ways with a beam. Think about how this light just blows away previous search and rescue lights. I mean, even, I don't know, a decade ago, sheriff teams that were going out on searches were using those 6-volt lantern batteries, maybe some headlamps, some Kel lights, some mag lights, but honestly, they all pale in comparison to this light, pumping out 800 lumens, and again, the SR91 is much more than that. Incredible lights. Now, in my philosophy of use, I'm using it as a range light. I'm talking a gun range light. So many people who come out to TMP to shoot with us do not have their weapon lights, or they're just so substandard. Not this one, I'm talking a variety that we've seen out there. They can't throw a beam. We got to illuminate for them. And so what do? Do I waste time putting this on here, finding one extra, and I don't have a ton of these rolling around? And even at 100 yards, I got to be honest, and I said this in the review, the G5, the X7, and pretty much every other light I've seen with 2 CR123 batteries, even one 18650 sucks at 100 yards. It just does not, for me, get the job done. I'll tell you what, this SR91 gets the job done. At 100 yards, no problem. The guy can totally see the plate, and it's a time saver for me. You know, I don't have to waste time, again, putting a weapon light on. The guy just goes over his right shoulder. We're shooting at night. We're gun testing. We're not really in a tactical environment. I'm not at war, which this hugely bright light would bring enemy fire. I'm talking about weapon testing, just what I do here in TMP. It works great. Not an EDC light, not a keychain light. Maybe just a G-Whiz light that you just love it. Sure. It does have a fairly good run time at the 450 lumen level, 10.5 hours. It is rechargeable. Downside is it doesn't take 123 batteries inside it, which sucks, which I think the S18 does, the 4.7s. So that's a downside. That's versatility as I see it. Maybe collectible, but it's kind of expensive. Track record. Other than the bauble of water, proof testing of the SR90, the track record has been pretty good. One caveat, don't drop it on its lens. I think it's pretty tough glass, but I think you could also shatter it. And the SR90 head, I think, is even broader, and we noticed that, like we were talking out in the desert, like if you dropped it on a rock, you could shatter the whole thing. And that kind of brings us to cost and value. Why would you go with an SR91 when the SR90 is brighter with better run times? I think that's a valid question, and the answer is cost. This light is much more affordable, and it has, in my estimation, pretty much the same capabilities. Sometimes on the internet we get so wrapped around the numbers of a lighting product that that's what we go off of. Maybe the lumens are this, that it registered this on the light meter, it throws this. I don't really focus on that too much in TMP. I focus on where the rubber hits the road. How does it work in practical real-world conditions, and this light excels in it. I'm talking in cold weather. We had it out in ice fog. The battery was completely cold-soaked. It kept on cranking. I will say what I've always said. You're going to have reduced run times even out of whatever battery you have when it gets really, really cold. But it's going to be a more cost-efficient light, the SR91. Size and weight-wise, it's about the same. If you can afford it, I probably would recommend going with the SR90 if your system can take it. So it's an excellent light, simple UI, high quality construction. Oh, by the way, I didn't show you the case it comes with. Here you go. Nice case. You'll need it, by the way. The SR90 case is even cooler because the head comes off. Well, I guess, I don't know if cooler's the right thing. You have to actually dismantle the light, if I remember right, to fit it all in. The upside of the 91s, it fits right in there. There's a charger, and you can charge this battery all by itself. You just unscrew the tail cap, charge it up, or you can charge it like I do while it's on the light. I don't know about the price because it changes so much. Go to the link in the upper right. That's where I recommend buying it. I know you ain't going to afford it if you're some poor college student, but an institutional light like this has a lot of places. And when I say institutional, it could be an LE facility or agency. It could be, well, like me, you know, the Nutnfancy project, testing guns. It serves well. That's a Nutnfancy review. See ya.
Just barely. I don't know. It's getting cold.
It is.
All right. Could be, could be.
I like it.
Tearing it up.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, buddy, good job. You got another one, don't you? Mag.